a Seventh-day Adventist. After 20 years, when his daughter went and took the Bible study, that was the time this man's worldview transformation took place. It took 20 years for that man to process that worldview that was coming to him. So there was a time of transformation from worldview to another. So it's a lifelong process to the context of worldview transformation, because it is a challenge. Now here, when we look at the worldview, there are two aspects of worldview. The first one is the theoretical aspect. So it gives the theory of the philosophy. For me, my worldview is coming from my scripture, the Bible. That is the theoretical component of my worldview built up. The second is, I call it tangible aspect of worldview. Experiencing the worldview through my senses. Now, I have used the word deliberately through my senses, not just one or two things. Because, when we put on a particular kind of dress, it's not just the mind, at the same time, our eyes impact there. When we listen something, it impacts there. When we steal something, it impacts there. So it has both these two aspects. One is the theoretical, one is the tangible. We are mostly seeing that tangible aspect. Particularly Southern Asians are very much into that tangible expression. Let me quickly share an experience of mine. Way back, late 80s, I was in South Bihar. In South Bihar, very close to Teen Pahar, not very close, you have to go about an hour or so. Interior, there is a village called Madhbhanga, Chota Madhbhanga. And there's a village called Bada Madhbhanga. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but in that village, at one time, with the help of the Friends Missionary Prayer Band, more than half of the village got converted to Christianity. As they got converted, they refused to worship the Hanuman Dhwaja, means the flag of Hanuman. And they were worshiping in the veranda of one of the converts. Now, for them, that flag of Hanuman in the village was a tangible expression of their faith, a holy place and holy object. Now, when they denied that flag and worshiping in the veranda of somebody, they were not satisfied. To them, they were missing the tangible expression of a holy place. And slowly, the members were kind of dispersing. The missionaries realized it. Immediately, they helped them to raise a church. Well, not a huge building like Spicer Church, a simple thatched building designated as church. I had the privilege to attend the inauguration program of that small thatched church built by the bamboos and tiles. People were sitting on the mud floor and things like that. But the joy that they had, that because now they have a holy place to worship the holy God, a tangible experience of those people. So worldview, yes, it has a theoretical aspect, but it also has a tangible aspect. Now, why I'm raising all these issues? Conversion for all practical purposes, is the change of worldview. It is shifting allegiances from one worldview to another worldview. Because there is a huge difference between the worldviews. So when someone moves from one faith to another faith, it is not just going into the water or going into the temple or going into the mosque. Those are just the external activities. The real change should take place at the core of everything, and that is the worldview. So the worldview has to transform from one place, from one understanding of worldview to another worldview. And that's why we call it worldview transformation. It should transit, it should change from one to another. If that is not done, then there is a possibility of syncretism, because the change is just a superficial. It's not an internal change. And I was, for this presentation, which I have an intention to put it in papers in days to come. So I have again started talking to people. I was interviewing somebody yesterday. The person has come from Hindu faith to Christianity. And the person was telling that he did not know anything about Christianity, but somehow took baptism. Now, when he took baptism, he being a faithful Hindu, there is something called Sandhanik, means worshipping in the morning, worshipping in the evening, and reciting the Gayatri mantra and all those things. So he said, I was doing all that, and with that, I added Jesus Christ. Why? Because his worldview did not change. Just one or two external things that changed, but not at the core, there was a transmission. So a syncretism took place. Over the period of time, with the help of other workers of the church, the person slowly came out from that syncretistic thought and became a minister of the church. So where are the challenges? Number one challenge for us is we ourselves are the challenge. We have been taught to dislike any other worldview and practices. I'm not asking you to endorse everything, but we definitely need to see and understand the worldview of others when we go for mission. I grew up in a Christian family, Anglican family, and my parents told me that they were taught, if they see a temple on the road, they were taught not to even look at them, but to turn the head on the other side and pass by the temple. Many times we are being trained in that way. So everything that comes from outside our comfort zone are all evil, all bad. There is a wide gap between any two worldview. I don't have much time to talk about that, but for example, as Pastor Mohanraj said, that the Hindu worldview says life is cyclical, or the whole system is actually cyclical, whereas our Christian or our biblical worldview says, no, things are linear. My worldview tells me I'll be born once. Hindu worldview tells me that a soul will transmigrate from one body to another body. My worldview tells that I need to take care of the body. in Hindu worldview, body is actually, though people take care of that, it's not supposed to be a matter of such serious importance. So if you look at that, there is a wide gap between the two worldviews, any two worldview for that matter. In case of shifting the allegiances, we want instant shifting. 21 days crusade, over baptism, move to the next meeting. It does not happen in that way. Instant shifting is not, in most cases, it does not happen. As I was talking to people for all these things, for this purpose, I did not find anybody who overnight got a revelation and said, okay, I have totally shifted my allegiance. No. You need a little time. The students, those who come from Northeast India, when you come to this part of India, you find things are different, isn't it? Even within the Adventist church. As I said already, partial developed faith resulting syncretism of faith. If it is not totally done, syncretism in the practice. And you will also find reverse movement. When people cannot match with the worldview that they have come in, there is always a possibility of the person goes back to the worldview that they were contributing all through their life. So what are the possible solutions? I said possibles because I don't have answer for all of them. The first one is know and understand the worldview of others who do not belong to your faith. If we do not know why do they do things, why do they believe certain things, why do they behave those things, it is difficult to understand them. I will suggest that to all of you, those who are particularly the mission students, read the book Peace Child. A very interesting book, how the worldview of people impacted their regular life. And when the missionary came with a different worldview, how the transformation started taking when the missionary actually picked up one component of their worldview, contextualized it, and used it for mission work. Learn to appreciate their good views and build bridge. Every worldview has certain good component. Whenever we appreciate, learn from them and appreciate it. Give them to deliberate on the new worldview that is coming to them. So don't expect immediate change. Okay? Give them the time. Sometimes it might take a long time. Research and development has to be done at a local level. This is a challenge for us. We always look to be more specific to the West to give us answers to the questions. Now, being involved in mission at different contexts, one thing that we are slowly realizing that the research and the development of certain expressions of the worldview needs to be done at a local level. We cannot expect somebody from outside to come and give us a solution to the problem. Because, there's this worldview and its practices are such things, you just can't make it out by reading few pages. It's not possible. Someone has to be the part of it. Someone has to internalize it. And until and unless you belong to that worldview, it's difficult to do that. So research and development has to be done at a local level. I know we are global church, we are universal church, but that is something we need to look at. And so we need to involve the local leadership in the decision-making process. Let them do the research and let them come out with the decision-making process. I know I am running over time, but let me quickly give you an illustration and then I give one point and close. Again, Dr. Bruce Bauer. He was, as you have heard, that in Cambodia, he did an experiment on Buddhist wedding. In Cambodia, the Buddhists had a tradition that in the wedding, there were strings attached to both the bride and the bridegroom, and the families held that string, and the priest used to cut that string and tie them together and chanted some mantras and things like that. He got involved, the local elders of the church, in the process. Well, there is, again, he has an article in GEMS. If you want to read it there. Okay, he got involved, the local elders, into it, and then asked them to go through every stage of it, analyze it, which is to be kept, which is to be thrown out. And when they came to this component where the strings were cut and attached, they said, well, we can read from the text where it says, for this reason, the man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. And they did it, which was well appreciated. So see, the local elders, they made the decision-making, they were involved in the decision-making process and helped them in that worldview transmission. They could take it easily in that. They could take it easily, that change of the worldview and the expression of that worldview in their life. Here is my statement. Expect universality of the teaching. We as Seventh-day Adventist Church, our doctrines have come from the Bible. And Bible is universal. And so our teachings are universal, but do not expect an uniform church. We cannot wear the same uniform. In other words, our worldview remains the same, but the tangible expression not necessarily has to be the same. When I hear people saying, I just felt as if I am in my home church. As a mission student, I say, no, that's not a very comfortable statement. Because if I am in a church which is 1,000 kilometers away from my home church and I feel that I'm in the home church, there is something wrong. A clone church is not a successful church. It has to be an original one with the universal teachings from the scripture. Okay? So the worldview transmission, yes, it has to take place from one worldview to the worldview that Bible gives. But the expression of that not necessarily be the same as it has come from its source. Sorry, not source, as it has come from a different context. Okay, thank you very much. I have overshot my time. Please forgive me for that. I hand over the time now to the organizers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chanchal Gayen. We have been blessed by, I think you understand the context well, so you went very slow, and that helped our students and all of us to understand much better. Thank you so much for covering more than what I expected. I thought you included almost everything in this theme called Worldview, and if not in detail, you touched almost everything. Thank you, and we appreciate your valuable contribution and time early morning. And this time, I don't want to take much time. We have two responses and then a Q&A section. Quickly, we'll move on to faculty response from Brother Santosh Kumar, and then after that, Brother Murali, one of our senior students.
Thank you so much. Well done job, sir. Dr. Chanchal Gayen, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I wish we had more time to listen to you more and more on this. I'm very much sure that everybody is blessed attending this session. First of all, worldview, how simple it appears, it is rather much more complex. But thank you so much for a brief presentation, a simple presentation that our students can understand clearly. Well, you have explained the term very carefully and with several references, and I really appreciate that you have supported your thoughts and your ideas with missiologists and theologians and even non-theologians how they understand. I think the quotation that you used was from an anthropologist or a sociologist, perhaps. Well, thank you so much for mentioning that worldviews are taken for granted. And perhaps it is one of those factors that eventually has affected our church or the quality growth of our church, because we do not understand and we kind of avoid it or ignore it without even consciously being aware of that. So thank you so much for pointing that out. Well, I also want to thank you for explaining Hindus' worldview. Indeed, it is very important that we understand, since you talked from the perspective. In fact, you limited your presentation from Hindus' perspective also. So I believe, yes, it is very important that we understand their worldviews carefully and clearly before even approaching them. Perhaps in the past, the churches had damaged the Christian rapport because of the unconscious, approaches towards the Hindus. Well, I also remember, just to quickly wind it up, I remember a family that I visited along with a few students in Pune. The family converted from, of course, a Hindu faith to Seventh-day Adventist Christian. We were there for a prayer meeting, and we were quite early in the morning. And the moment we reached, they were very excited to have us. They welcomed us, gave us morning, snacks and breakfast. Meanwhile, the lady, I noticed the lady was hurrying to take a shower. The moment she came out, she dressed freshly, and I saw her going towards the corner of her second room, which was attached to the kitchen. And she stood there, and I saw her opening the Bible, standing and reading to a small shrine, which no God there, let me mention that. But she used to keep the Bible there. And she took the Bible from there, read a few passages, and then kept the Bible and stood like how a Hindu will stand. And she started, moving like how a Jewish will move while chanting from the book. And she was praying. Let me mention again, she's a Christian, very strong Christian, very supportive member of our church. My students had objections when they came. I said, why did she behave like a Hindu? But for me, I really appreciated her faith, though it had some elements of what we see, mostly among Hindus. But I think she had a different way of seeing or worshiping God with more purity. She wanted to appear before God with more purity. That is something that is something that we Christians need to appreciate and accept if possible. So thank you so much, Dr. Gayen. I'm so blessed, and I'm so proud to say this, that I have been your student. I am your student, and it has always been a blessing to be under your wings, learning new things for mission. Thank you so much for your presentation. I do have 3 questions, but I'll start with one. and the rest will be asked by the moderator. Here's my question, Dr. Gayen. There has been great delusion on the understanding of Christian worldview and often mistaken with biblical worldview. And people have been using both, sometimes either one of them. How different are the other terms? And which worldview approach is safer and suitable to use for the mission of God to the people of God? Thank you so much, sir.
You want me to address the question now or after another response?
You can make a quick response, sir.
Okay. The Christian worldview, as we understand or as we hear, should originate from the Bible. Now, probably it originated some point of time in the past from the Bible. But it is so unfortunate that Christianity itself became the synonym of westernization. And so a lot of westernized elements got into it. And so now people understand Christianity as a synonym of a faith coupled with lots of things that people do in the West. Okay, let me quickly give you an illustration. From Parihar Chowk, if you drive straight, okay, I forgot the name of that road now, but you drive straight and hit to that end of it, the T point. Okay, from there you take the right turn, going toward that hospital. There's a hospital, I remember. Okay, just take it, go about, say, 100 meters, and there is a shop, a watch repairing shop by Mr. Pathan. Now, originally, Mr. Pathan had a shop in Aund, by the wall of the Aund Mosque. Now, one day I went to him getting my watch repaired, and I mentioned that I am Christian. He said, I don't like the Christians. I asked him, I said, why don't you like the Christians? He said, Christians, they eat that thing. This was exactly his expression, okay? Physical expression. He said, Christians eat that thing. I said, what is that? He said, that thing, and his expression says that how much he hates that. I realized immediately, okay, he's talking about pork. I told him, I don't eat that. He said, you don't eat that? You said you're a Christian? I said, yes, I'm a Christian, but I don't eat that because my Torah does not allow me to do so. He says, but Christians do. See, the problem is what happened. Nowadays, when we talk about Christian worldview, it kind of got blended with many of the practices of the West. Some are good, some are bad. So what I suggest as a student of mission, probably we need to now keep aside that term Christian worldview and use the word the biblical worldview.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Brother Santosh, for your response. Let me invite Brother Murali to make his response now.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this opportunity of addressing what you have presented to us. My family background is a Hindu background. By God's grace, there was a transformation, a change, even before my birth. But still, the worldview of Hinduism is still in my parents. But God is doing a change, bringing a change in their lives. I really appreciate the way I was blessed with these solutions at the end. Like, we have to know and understand and learn to appreciate others and give them time, and particularly to research about in a local way to the worldviews of others, and also involving them in decision making. This has broadened my worldview of approaching others. Thank you so much for your contributions to to this presentation.
Thank you.
I was battling at the beginning, in the middle of the presentation. Worldview. Suddenly, I was questioning: is there a physical body part of called worldview that it works or it functions? But totally, which part of the body primarily works as a vital tool to give a worldview, sir? And the physical body part of our physical body part, which is the vital important organ that addresses worldview. But
Okay. If Murali's question is done, let me quickly respond to that. In fact, I will start responding by asking a question to Murali. Murali,
yes, sir.
which part of the body of yours thinks?
Absolutely, brain, sir. My mind.
Absolutely, your brain. So your worldview is there in your brain.
That's
okay?
correct. Yes,
But
sir.
that brain directs you to fold your hands when you pray. Because your worldview tells when you
Yes.
come before the divine, you should be in a respectful, in a reverential posture. Right?
That's right.
So you put your hands together, you kneel down, your knees kneel down by the direction that comes from the brain. So the worldview is in the brain, is in the thinking. But it
Yes.
guides as it is required to different body parts.
Thank you, sir. So,
Yes.
as everything has a beginning, this worldview, I understand this is different to different person.
Hmm.
It has a beginning, right, for every individual,
Hmm.
and it is tangible. Like it changes. There is a change in worldview. What is the ultimate worldview of an individual?
Well, I am if I am not mistaken, are you trying to say that you reach to one point and say this is my worldview? Are you trying to say that?
Particularly, not, I think, sir.
No. So can you please
Yes.
explain your question, or somebody else can explain his question?
I guess what is the ultimate in the sense, maybe the final worldview a person will have.
Correct, sir.
See, as I said, there are several things that contribute to build up our worldview. One is our religion. So you have the Bible that gives you the religious aspect. Then you have the long-standing customs and traditions. Remember, in the childhood, our parents did not explain us why to touch the feet of others, but the instruction was straight. Somebody senior has come, go and touch the feet. An expression of respect toward the seniors. Later on, we understood why it is so. But again, that we did not question much. Worldview is something that we don't question much. But yes, it's a process. When do you reach to the ultimate? I don't think that I can answer that question because there is no time frame in the line of our life. There is a point where, yes, we can consolidate and maturely say that this is what is my worldview. For example, as a Seventh-day Adventist, we have kind of given to the world church how the worldview of a Seventh-day Adventist should be from the 28 beliefs of the church. Okay, the 28 beliefs actually gives us a one-page statement of worldview of the church. Some may have a question, some may blindly take it, some may deliberate on it, and then finally agree or disagree to it. But there is a guideline given by the church that this is how those who become the part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church should be, or this should constitute the worldview of that individual.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, and thank you, Murali, for your response. Now we shall quickly move to the Q&A section. We have a number of questions. I'll share. Can you see the screen?
I saw just, I think, the first slide of yours.
Okay.
Okay, worldview transfer depends
So
on
the
how
first
much one is
question-
able to identify. What are the ways we can understand that? Very interesting question. How much one is able to identify in the underlying element. There are several ways, but the two major ways is read and ask. Need to answer the questions as much as they can.
Thank you, sir. Is there a biblical worldview that we all should be transformed to, or is it a mixture of many worldviews?
Well, as a Seventh-day Adventist minister, I will definitely say that we definitely hold on to the biblical worldview, what Bible teaches. Now, the challenge that people find in doing mission is that there is a worldview that also goes along with the biblical worldview. Or I will say the expression of some of the biblical worldviews are in a different way. I don't know if Shantosh is going to ask that question, but use this as an illustration. Bible says, honor your father and mother. Now, how do you honor your father and mother? Okay, biblical worldview says, honor your father and mother. Your father and mother. Now, in